The Case of Seeing the Dead. As he stood looking out the rain-spattered window of his office in downtown Waterville, Herbert Henry Oxidane, P.I., CWT, cracked a sideways smile when his black rotary phone sprang to life. On the third ring, he answered. Detective H2O here, the best water treater this side of the Ohio. Solving water problems drop by drop. What you got?
Mr. Detective Oxidane, or H2O, whatever your moniker is, this is Charlie Baxter, originally from Savannah, Georgia, but I now live in Waterville and I work at Carlisle Industrial Incorporated. I got your name from a friend and I thought I'd drop a dime on you.
I see. Well, since you got me on the blower, why don't you spit it out? I charge by the minute.
Paying cabbage is no problem if you can come on out here and solve our problem. We have this process loop, you see, and it keeps getting loaded up with those microbial critters. I tell you what, despite all our best efforts, why don't y'all come on down here and I'll give you the full scoop.
All right, you've hooked me. I'll get my rust bucket started and be out your way within the hour. I might have to fill up the old mare first since you're uphill most of the way and she gets mighty thirsty in her old age.
Fantastic, Detective H2O. We'll be ready for you. Y'all come on down, you hear?
As if on demand, the deluge of rain slowed to a light drizzle as Detective H2O pulled to a stop in his rusty blue Ford. Water was in his blood, and weather like this always soothed his soul. Charlie Baxter met him at the front gate and escorted him to his office in the middle of the plant. The detective had never been here before. A multinational water treatment company had this account buttoned up for years. It was telling that he was being invited here now. Something had them perplexed, and solutions weren't forthcoming. This is quite the complex operation you have here, Mr. Baxter. Pipes running everywhere, from every direction, it seems. Some water and some not.
Oh, please. Call me Charlie. And what should I call you?
Detective H2O, was the bland reply.
Oh, of course.
Charlie quickly recovered.
You are quite right, Detective H2O. This facility looks like a bowl of spaghetti. In fact, people accuse us of getting Willy Wonka to design it. Every nook and cranny has a purpose to get the final product out the door. But it ain't an easy task keeping it all going. And you can take that to the bank.
Tell me about this process loop that's given you the headache that you mentioned on the phone. Charlie looked out at the facility and said,
You see, the main process loop provides cooling water to several critical processes in the plant. It's a completely closed loop, all clammed up with no open water to the atmosphere. We had some failures in some piping and even a heat exchanger. Upon inspection, all the reports said MIC, or microbiologically induced corrosion, that is. This comes as no surprise since the metal samples we took even felt slimy.
I see. What did you do next? You mentioned taking action on the phone earlier.
First, we tested the system for microbial activity, and boy, did we find them. Then we added a non-oxidizing biocide. That seemed to ward them little suckers off for a while, but they soon came back. We tried a few more times, but it was the same old story. It was like a broken record. Then we moved to an oxidizing biocide, and we flushed the system before and after we added that biocide. That's not an easy task with a loop this large. Plus, we had to add fresh water treatment chemicals. Those critters came back again. Sometimes you can even smell those suckers in the water. Just over a month and a half ago, we repeated the oxidizer, drain, and flush again. And of course, we had to put new water treatment chemicals in too. You can probably guess what happened after that. They seemingly returned from beyond the grave to resurrect themselves once again. That's where you come in. Our experts are out of ideas.
Charlie said, dropping his head. The detective eyed the poor sap and replied, "Well, you've got quite the story to tell there. That's a lot to take in, but I'll do my best to get this canary to sing. First, what is the chemical treatment program you use in the main process loop?"
Nitrite. Now I know where you're going with this because we continually see our nitrite levels drop as them bug counts keep going up. That's why we also did a pre-flush prior to adding the oxidizer, since we didn't want the reaction between the two becoming part of the oxidizer demand.
Yes, very good. Nitrate can be a bug food, and we'll take that into consideration. Nitrite is an excellent corrosion inhibitor and is used successfully in all kinds of applications without the issues you are experiencing. We won't discount its impact, but let's get the lay of the land first. I need to see your testing logs, disinfection reports, and whatever other details you can show me regarding the actions you have taken.
We're an open book around here, Detective. It's already laid out on that table over yonder. Y'all going over there and help yourself.
As Detective H2O perused through the files, he took notes, pulled out his near abacus calculator to confirm a few things, and peppered Charlie with questions. Anything Charlie didn't know, he pulled his guys in to answer. "Charlie, procedurally, I can't poke holes in your story. It does appear the disinfections were by the book with enough oxidizer for enough time throughout a multitude of checkpoints in the system to be effective. In most applications, it would have worked. There's more to find out, though. Can you walk me through the system next? I want to see everything from where the makeup water comes in to the pumps, heat exchangers, side stream filters, chemical addition points, vents, and drains."
Not a problem. And I know where to just start this little trip. Y'all come on now, you hear?
Charlie took Detective H2O through a maze of piping, stairs, and aisleways. All the time, the detective kept his eye on the main process loop piping and sketched a process flow diagram as they went along. They tracked down every T, opened the pot feeder, inspected the bag filters, etc. As they stood at what Charlie said was the end of the road, Detective H2O glared at his hand-sketched process flow diagram and said, "Okay, this is the last jump-off point from the main line just above our heads. It's the same diameter as the primary flow of the main process loop, quite large. Where does it go?"
Well, that's there for future expansion plans so we can connect those operations to the main process loop. It ends just beyond that wall over there.
"It ends, you say? Can you show me?" Charlie led the way through a door into the next room where the piping simply ended with a blind flange. Peering up at the stunted piping, Detective H2O knew he'd found what he'd been looking for all along. "So tell me, Charlie, when you did your disinfection, draining, and flushing the system, did you do anything special with this part of the piping?"
Well, no we didn't. As a matter of fact, I really ain't getting it no mind until you just brought it up right now. I'm sure it drained with the rest of the system.
Detective H2O gave his trademark sideways, slightly unsettling smile and proclaimed, "That's a dead leg, my good fellow."
A what? A dead what?
A dead leg. Not a zombie apocalypse, but an area within a system with low to no flow. It can be a leg of piping dead-ended like this one, or even an offline system, such as a chiller. Not only can sediment slowly collect in these areas, but so can microbiological activity such as biofilms. Because of the lack of sufficient flow, water treatment chemicals cannot reach far enough into them to be effective. The bugs set up home in these dead legs, safe from your biocides and disinfection activities. Each time you tried to clean the system, they simply waited and re-inoculated the bulk water all over again. I believe this is our smoking gun.
Ooh-wee! A dead leg. Who'd have thunk? But what you say makes sense. I tell you what, I'm tired of taking the fall for these little guys. What can you do about it, Detective?
In your case, I think you need to disinfect the system one more time, unfortunately, but this time the entire system. If you can't remove the whole dead leg, you'll at the very least need to install a drain line at the end that you'll have to open on a regular basis to establish flow, remove any sediment, and expose the piping to the water treatment. Plus, I'm curious to see what's inside the pipe. It will need to be cleaned out. Let's walk the system again to make sure we're not missing any other such dead legs. And then I'll work with you to develop a plan for a thorough disinfection this time.
All righty then, let's get started. We'll have them critters sleeping with the fishes before we know it.
1 month, 2 months, 6 months, and a year later, Charlie Baxter called Detective H2O to give him an update on the main process loop. There was no noted microbiological activity. Detective H2O had saved the day once again and was paid all the cabbage he was due. In the underbellies and penthouses of the metropolis of Waterville, where the boilers percolate and cooling towers fog, there is one man who works tirelessly to end corrosion, stop scale, fight low-life microbes, and conserve water. That man is Detective H2O, best water treater this side of the Ohio, solving water problems drop by drop.